Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Payson, and I am honored to have a newly crowned champ on the show, Champ Ethan Hayes. Ethan, welcome to the show.
What's up, man?
I'm very excited you came on the show just not long ago, week and a half ago, talk about your upcoming fight. It was the main event at Live Cage Fights at the Marriott in Morgantown. It was a packed house. People went nuts for you. I know you were the biggest seller on the card. It was just a huge event. You were on a 3-fight win streak plus 4-fight pro boxing win streak. Just incredible. You haven't fought MMA. You jump back in there against a really great fighter on a multiple fight win streak. I think 3 out of Derek Brunson's gym. It was a great matchup. So first, if you will, give me kind of the overview of what it was like to fight with that crowd and to get the belt, and then we'll kind of break it down round by round, if that's okay.
Yeah, whenever I walked out and my song dropped, that was probably the biggest natural high I'll probably ever have. I mean, I was pretty hyped up to get in there, and there was a problem with his gloves or whatever. They were falling apart, so that's why the commission made him switch gloves. But at that point, I was just getting impatient. I just wanted to get it over with. That's pretty well. I want to get it over with the moment we find out we have to fight. I don't really like waiting around about it. But yeah, I mean, it was a pretty emotional night. Got teary-eyed a couple times. It's just been a long, like I said, waited 9 years to fight, 8 or 9 years to fight in front of a hometown finally, and it was worth it for sure.
Well,
pretty happy.
Yeah, and I think that's what probably got a lot of people excited to come out to your fight, because it was the first time they could see you fight in a hometown. You're at a point now where you're doing very well. Your boxing career is great. Your MMA career, obviously jumping back in, went really well for you. It was a wild, entertaining scrap. If I was announcing it, I would have called it a lively and entertaining scrap. It was, in my mind, fight of the night. It was super exciting. As the fighter in it, kind of break down the first round. How do you think that went? There was a lot of exchanges. It was really exciting, but just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on the first round.
The first round we went out, and I could tell he's probably. I mean, if I was going to fight me, I'd kick my legs because they're so skinny. So he came out and kicked my legs a couple times. And I was like, well, that's what he's going to do. And then we had a couple more exchanges. And he threw like a kick and he slipped and fell. So I was like, well, I was going to take him down anyway. So I was like, well, okay. So then me just being, I knew I'd be rusty because it's been 2 years, you know what I mean? And within like 30, 40 seconds, I was in the omoplata. And you've probably never seen me mad or ever will again. But in that about 20 seconds, I was in that omoplata. I was so mad at myself for being in a omoplata like I was some dumb white belt. And it was, still bugs me. You know what I mean? But I got out of that, and he put me in a crucifix for a second. And I thought that I was going to get the Roy Nelson treatment. I was Kimbo Slice. I thought he was going to start elbowing me in the face. But the only person I could hear was Nick coaching me through how to get out of it. And I got out of it, wrestled up, and ended up on top of him. I took him down after that. And then I went to spin to take his back. And whenever I did, he put his arm up and I put my chest on his shoulder. When I did, I slipped and I fell right in front of him. And then he was on my back after that. It was just like I said, rust like that. You know what I mean? I definitely felt rusty in the first round for sure. And then he ended up having to choke with like 10 seconds left in the round. And I heard the clapper go clap, and I'm like, oh, I'm not tapping now. It was like, wasn't very tight yet. But, you know, if he would have had another minute or so, he could have been threatening me pretty good with it. But, yeah. And then the bell rang, and I feel like after that first round, he exerted a lot of energy. Yeah, for sure.
Well, and with that, and with what you share, and I appreciate your, your feedback. You got through bad situations, even though, yeah, you got a little frustrated because you're put in situations that, but at the same time, sometimes the skill to survive through it makes a difference. You also referenced your coach, Nick Brown, who's an absolute monster and highly ranked in Bellator. How important is it for you to be able to key in on a voice like Nick and follow the instructions? Because no matter how much you know, in a live fight, it's helpful to have somebody else just going, just one step after a time, particularly in something tough like a crucifix. That's not the most pleasant situation to be in.
Yeah, see, I hear like familiar voices. Like even then, there was a time in the second or third round, I heard my buddy Tony Castillo. He was over. I wasn't in Nick's corner. I couldn't hear him. I kept hearing him say, "Get your butt to the cage." I could tell it's Tony's voice. You know what I mean? But I can hear familiar voices like that. As far as like family members or anything like that, I really can't hear. I can hear my mom. She's only came to a few, but I can hear her a couple times. But other than that, I can hear. I can usually have Nick's voice because he's like on a different frequency than anybody. And I can hear Dempsey, but I just hear familiar voices, even if I'm not in my corner. Because in the third round, I took him down to his corner. And I couldn't hear anything. I think that's when I could hear Tony because he was on the other side of the cage. You know what I mean? And that aspect's cool. And something my sister-in-law said, that was her first time watching me fight in quite a while, and she said that every time I was in a bad position, she goes, "You get out, Ethan. It just seemed like you were calm the whole time." And I was just like, "We do that every day, Courtney. Like if you go to the factory, you do shark tank rounds. You have 1 minute and somebody's on your back. And the next minute you're in side control. Next minute they might have you in mount. Just nonstop rounds like that. It's just another day. Once you're out of it, it's fine.
Yeah, and that you're talking about not only the physical conditioning, but also the mental conditioning of being put in really bad situations, but then being able to turn it off. Like you said, as soon as you're out, hey, you're good. You got to let it, you got to have a short memory, right? That's a great line
Yep.
for a lot of sports, particularly fighters. You got to have a short memory so that you're not fighting frustrated, like you said. So you're not angry or too emotional in there. What was the second round for you? Like you said, he kind of gassed himself. He had a lot of explosivity in the first round because he kind of caught you in a couple situations. So what was the second round like for you?
Oh, he came out and he actually put me against the fence. And I watched a live stream from his Facebook. And every time he put me against the fence, his corner really didn't want me to do that, it seemed like. And then he ran the pipe on me and took me down. And then I wrestled up on a single leg and then I ended up taking him down. I stayed on top the rest of the round. Something else need to work on just being rusty is like my ground and pound. You know what I mean? I'm always trying to pass guard and try to submit people because that's just more my style anyway. But he wasn't like when I passed his guard, he was doing a good job at regaining guard and stuff. And I just need to work on my ground and pound better in that aspect. But yeah, second round, I took him down after he took me down. And I was still on top the rest of the 3 minutes or so, laying in some ground and pound, passing guard, keep flattening him out, just trying to make him uncomfortable. And then after that, I could tell that he was, because it sucks trying to get out from underneath somebody the whole entire time. It's not fun at all. So I'm sure he was tired coming into the third for sure.
Yeah, that is a really rough round for him. It was a great bounce back round for you in the sense, like you said, as soon as you survived and got out of danger, mentally you're ready for the next round. That's a real good advice for anybody that's out there. Jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, doesn't really matter. Some type of combatant sport. It's really important to be able to just be like, okay, you're still ready to go. At this point, the crowd is, I mean, it was crazy because of how excited people were. What was the third round like for you at that point? Um, because it truly was a really exciting end of the fight.
Yeah, going into the third, I mean, Nick and my boxing coach Mac, and they were the ones in the cage, and Dempsey was behind me. And all three of them said, "I got to win the third round." They said it's 1-1. It's like this third round, you need to win it. And then he came out, and I was kind of content on staying on my feet for a minute. And then we had some exchanges on the feet. And then he put me against the cage and tried takedowns. And I kept stopping him. But when he put me against the cage, there I saw a bunch of blood on the ground. I thought it was mine because he clipped me a couple times. And I guess I busted his nose open. And I looked down my leg. I was like, "Oh, that's me." And then I was like, "Well, nothing's dripping from my face." And then it ended up being him. Then when we broke apart, Chip had to cut a piece of tape off that came out from underneath his glove. We had a couple more exchanges. Then he put me against the cage and I turned him. Then I took him down. And then so I did good there for like 2 minutes, staying on top of him. I was laying some ground and pounding elbows. And then like another dumb thing, I went for a submission. I was going for a Darce. He was coming up, and then he ended up standing up, and he took me down with like a little over a minute left after I controlled most of the round. And I thought, like, man, that might have just won him that round, getting on top. But I just stayed up, shot a couple submissions, hope for the best, and then I kept working up, went for a Kimura, and he got out. Then he took my back with like, didn't really take my back. He didn't have no hooks in, but like 10 seconds left. He was on my back, and I knew he wouldn't tap. I put him in a calf splicer just to crank his leg for a few seconds and hope, I mean, whatever, maybe make it uncomfortable for him. But yeah, then after that, I was like, well, I mean, I knew it was a close fight all the way around. I thought I did more in the second and third round for sure, I definitely felt like it was a split decision. Like he did well.
Well, that's a very honest and sportsman's-like response. I think a split decision sometimes doesn't make sense. I think in your case, it was a really entertaining fight, and sometimes that's the best result. I also believe you won. Like you said, you kind of explained it. It is weird how some judges, um, you know, 3 minutes into the last round, if there's a takedown, like you were saying, sometimes that does sway a minute left, sway because I had a judge once told me, and none of the judges there, but one of the judges said the way he scores if a round's really close, particularly last round, is who looks like they could be fresher for the round that's not going to happen. And that's just a
Yeah,
little, I mean, I don't think that's the worst way to judge, but basically, if it's a really tight round at the last round, he goes, well, who looks like they'd be okay in the next round? So I think that was also you, but hats off to your opponent because he came into enemy territory. The crowd was
oh yeah,
definitely not in his favor. And you guys both put on a great show. At one point, you had mentioned a crucifix. I think in round one, he also had you like in a reverse crucifix, or at least
yeah,
trying. Like, yeah. So it was a very entertaining situation. You mentioned the omoplata in round one. For all jiu-jitsu people out there, MMA is different, right? Because they're striking, because there's more in it. You like you said, you might feel like sort of insulted, like a white belt, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I got into omoplata. But at the same time, MMA makes some submissions more likely because of the fact that more is going on, which is why it's so important for BJJ people to really train BJJ, but also to work rounds where more is allowed, so that it's not just, oh, I can. We all know the dreaded butt scoot, right? Great BJJ competition's not going to work in MMA, right?
exactly.
So for you, we started off by you saying what it meant to you and how exciting it was. You've said on this show before that you're just kind of figuring things out. You took a couple boxing fights, you're 4-0 in boxing, you've got a really good MMA. For you now, is it continue to make a run in MMA? You're in the professional ranks. Obviously, you just got a title, or is it go back to boxing, or is it do horseshoes? I mean, what's next for you? Because I feel like you're kind of never really super committed to what the next plan is, unless that's changed, of course.
No, I mean, it doesn't really matter to me. I mean, a fight's a fight. It's just a rule set. So, I mean, if I get a boxing match, that's fine with me. I'll just concentrate on that for 6 weeks or so. And if another MMA fight becomes available in the meantime, then I'm not opposed to that. I've had a lot of promotions reach out to me the past 3 days. I really haven't hit them back yet because I'm already blown back up like Patty the Fatty. You know what I mean? I've been eating a lot the past 4 days. So like I'm not really stressing it right now, probably till like another 2 or 3 weeks, start seeing what's up. But yeah, I mean, it really doesn't matter to me. I think people put too much thought into fighting itself. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, oh, you will never see me do like a kickboxing match probably, but I mean, I'll do boxing, MMA, jiu-jitsu competitions. It doesn't necessarily matter. Just whatever's a good fight, whatever makes sense for my career, whatever makes money, whatever gets me to the next step. I mean, you just gotta play chess, not checkers.
I love it. I appreciate you coming on the show. You're always an entertaining guest. I really enjoy interviewing you. You're now a champ. You're a professional MMA champ. That's super, super exciting. And so congratulations on the win. You come out of a couple great. I know you've trained in Morgantown. You've trained at All American for Nick Brown and also the Mad Factory. So you're a great representative and a great ambassador for a bunch of great gyms and a bunch of great coaches. I'm looking forward to having you back on the show, whatever comes your way. I think it's also really cool how you kind of pointed out the mindset that for you, your mindset is what makes the most sense given 3 or 4 different factors. And you're also really huge for 145. So to me, it makes perfect sense that you're not going to necessarily go back to back in a week's notice or 2 weeks notice.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there were some promoters that reach out that need a guy that's coming off a fight type thing. So I think that made a lot of sense. Personally, because I get to call 247 fights, I'm hoping that you get to fight 247 in July. You've obviously fought big fights for them before. The Ethan versus Ethan matchup was huge, and now he's a champ, and he soon might be defending in April. So that's got to be kind of exciting just in general. But anyhow, I appreciate you coming on the show. Enjoy this win. Thanks for taking time out of your day, and congratulations to the champ, Ethan Hayes.
Yep. Thanks, Luke.
Thanks so much, bud.
For interviewing everybody too, man. You keep
Always-
the scene alive around here.
Always happy to do it, bud. You take care. Thanks
sure.
a lot. All
Yeah,
right.
later, man.
All right, bye-bye.